Welcome everyone to my Throne of Eldraine limited set review. This is part 3. Last time we looked at the blue cards, and before that we looked at all the white cards. This time we're going to look at all the black cards. So again, I like to use the limited resources rating system, with A being the best and F being the absolute worst unplayable stuff. So yeah, let's get started. The first one is Ayara, First of Lochthwain. It's black, black, black for a legendary creature elf noble at rare. It's a 2/3, and it says, whenever Ayara, First of Lochthwain, or another black creature enters the battlefield under your control, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. And then it says, tap, sacrifice another black creature, draw a card. So this card really pays you off for being mono black, obviously, and it's kind of hard to put this in like a 2-color deck, because how often are you going to be able to get 3 black mana by turn 3? But I think this is totally fine if you have it by like turn 4 or 5 even. So there's that to consider. But I don't know, this is just really good value for being in the black deck, and then it lets you sack a black creature that's useless to draw a card, which is always awesome. The body isn't anything to write home about, and dies to that red removal spell that deals 3 damage. I swear I'll learn the name of that card. But yeah, I think I would first pick this and try to be black, because it's a pretty good black payoff. So I'll give a B to Ayara, with consideration that it is hard to cast, and if I'm not mostly mono black, I might not even play it. So B for Ayara. Next up, we got Bake into a Pie. It's 2 and 2 black for an instant at common. It says destroy target creature, create a food token. So this is really good. This is just like Eviscerate from, I think, Dominaria, or was it Ixalan? I'm not sure. But that one was 4 mana and kill anything at sorcery speed. This one's an instant, and with upside you get a food token. Usually that's the destroy spells with upside are like 5 mana in common. So this one is first pickable. It's really good. You want this and multiples in every black deck. So I would definitely first pick this if it's in even a pretty good pack over a lot of rares. So you want a lot of these. So I think I would give this I'll give it a B+, because it's just really good and you want it in every black deck. Next up, we got Barrow Witches. Barrow Witches is 4 and a black for a creature human warlock at common. It's a 3/4. When Barrow Witches enters the battlefield, return target knight card from your graveyard to your hand. So you gotta be knights, and otherwise it's kind of unplayable. You want more for 5 mana than a 3/4. Does rumble okay with 3 power, 4 toughness, but if you're not in the knight deck, I'd probably cut it. So I'm giving this a C-. Anyway, next one is Belle of the Brawl. It's 2 and a black for a creature human knight at uncommon. Has menace. It's a 3/2. Has menace. Whenever Belle of the Brawl attacks, or other knights you control get +1/+0 until end of turn. This is one of the better knights. It's even a knight payoff, which pays you off for being in the knight deck. You definitely want at least one of these in your deck. Just really solid. Helps you pile on the damage with your other knights. And, you know, it's got menace, so it's even hard to block. So, yeah, definitely like Belle of the Brawl. I think this is a B-. I don't know if I'd first pick it, but it is pretty solid once you're in that knight deck. Next up, we got Black Lance Paragon, 1 and a black for a creature human knight. It's a rare and 3/1, has flash, and when it enters the battlefield, target knight gains Death Touch and Lifelink until end of turn. So this is just like 2 mana removal in black, plus you gain 3 life. Imagine this is like an instant that says, you know, destroy target attacking creature, you gain 3 life. That's kind of what this says. Or you can just give it to a knight that's attacking on your side and give it Death Touch and Lifelink, which could be pretty good. I don't know, it's very versatile. I would consider picking this, especially if like bacon to a pie isn't in the pack or anything. Um, yeah, I don't know. It's pretty good. It's kind of like removal, but only in combat. And then it's a 3-1 for 2, which is, decent. So I'll give this one a B minus. Next up, we got Bognaughty, 3 and 2 black for a creature fairy at uncommon. It's a 3/3 with flying. 2 and a black, sacrifice a food. Target creature gets -3/-3 until end of turn. So this one gives like all of your food like a way better option than just sacking for life. This one actually turns your food into removal, which is awesome. Plus, it's a 5 mana 3/3 flyer, which is respectable. I'd put that in my deck. You definitely put this in most of your black decks, and if you're in the food deck, you probably want like 2 of these at least. So, yeah, I think this is a pretty solid, and I will give it a B minus. Might even first pick it because it's just really good in that food deck. So if you first pick that, I'd probably try hard to be in the food deck. If not, then it's still, a playable card. Next up, we got Cauldron Familiar. It's a black for a creature cat. Uncommon 1/1. When Cauldron Familiar enters the battlefield, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. Also says, sacrifice a food, return Cauldron Familiar from your graveyard to the battlefield. So it's a 1 mana 1/1, which is, terrible, but it does pay you off for draining them for 1 life, which is okay. And then if you're in the food deck, then you can keep getting this back, which you can drain them for maybe 3-4 points of life, I think, optimistically. So you got to be careful about how many 1 mana 1/1s you put in your deck, because they're not great. And this one doesn't even have Death Touch or anything. It's kind of like a mini game. You're trying to get food tokens to drain them for 1. I don't know. The payoff isn't great, so I want to make it work, but at the same time, I know it's not going to be good. Plus, it's a black cat. Ooh. So I think this one's a D plus. Just be very wary of putting it in your deck, and I would really only play it if you're in a heavy food deck. Next up, we got the Cauldron of Eternity, 10 and 2 black for a legendary artifact at Mythic Rare. So it's one of the it's one of the cycle of legendary artifacts, 1 in each color. This is the black one. Whenever a creature you control dies, put it on the bottom of its owner's library, and pay 2 and a black, tap, pay 2 life, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Activate this ability only anytime you can cast a sorcery. And I don't know if I mentioned this, it costs 2 less for each creature card in your graveyard. So this card really depends on your deck. Like if you have a lot of ways to get creature cards in your graveyard, either by milling or trading off or sacrificing or whatever, then this gets a lot better, because you're not going to play this for 12 mana. That's just impossible. Plus, you wouldn't even have any use for it because there's nothing in your graveyard to reanimate in the first place, and everything that dies just goes to the bottom of your library. So you want to have at least like three at like the least, and then 4, 5, 6 you're really getting there as far as creature cards in your graveyard. But it reanimates stuff for 3 mana and 2 life, which is excellent. You'll happily pay 2 life for any good creature, but you're going to be wanting to put like bigger creatures in your deck, or just like more impactful creatures in your deck, which is not always the easiest thing to do in limited, especially like in draft and sealed. It's pretty hard to evaluate actually, but it really depends on your deck. So if you're running like a lot of 4 and 5 drops, it probably gets better. And if you have like, you don't really want to be reanimating like 2 drops, because you're paying 3 mana for like a 2 drop, so which like traded in combat. So this thing will grind out some value late in the game, and I think it is worth it usually. And I'd be looking to first pick this probably. I'll give this a B because I would first pick it, and there's probably not a lot I would take over it. But you are kind of forcing yourself into that that deck where you want to have big creatures and not a lot of little creatures. All right, so B for the Cauldron of Eternity. Next up, we got Cauldron's Gift, which is 4 and a black for a sorcery at uncommon. It says Adamant, which Adamant is, this is the first time in this video we have Adamant, so each Adamant basically says if you pay 3 mana of the spell's color, you get an additional effect. So this one, it says Adamant, if at least 3 black mana was spent to cast a spell, put the top 4 cards of your library into your graveyard. Then, no matter what, whether you have 3 black mana or not, it says you may choose a creature card in your graveyard. If you do, return it to the battlefield with an additional 1/1 counter on it. So this is one of the Adamant cards that, like, you don't need Adamant if you have stuff in your graveyard. And if you don't have anything in your graveyard, I would not just Adamant this out and hope to hit something, because you could end up with the fail case that you'll get nothing. And that feels horrible. You just wasted 5 mana. So I wouldn't do that. But I would probably give this one a C+, because you do want to reanimate stuff in black usually, and you get back like your like Troll King or whatever, or Feasting Troll King or something, which would be insane. So if you got bombs in your deck, this is definitely in. And if you don't have bombs in your deck, I'd probably cut this. So, yeah, so Cauldron's Gift, what did I say, C+? Yeah, I'd give this a C+, whatever I just said, C+. So the next one is Clackbridge Troll, 3 and 2 black for a creature troll at rare, has Trample and Haste, it's an 8/8, 8/8, When Clackbridge Troll enters the battlefield, target opponent creates 3/0/1 white goat creature tokens. Okay. And then at the beginning of combat on your turn, any opponent may sack a creature. If a player does tap Clackbridge Troll, you gain 3 life and you draw a card. So this card is actually, like, it reads kind of like, what the heck is this card doing? But basically, it's a really good card advantage card, because you're giving them goats, yes, 3 goats, but each time they sack one, you gain 3 life and draw a card, and you better believe they're going to sack those goats. Unless they have like a removal for this, then, well, you're SOL, but they likely won't. There's not a lot that can kill an 8/8 besides like Bake into a Pie and a couple other cards, like the next one we have. But this card is just a bomb, and it's actually one of the best cards in black. I mean, yeah, it sucks when you don't get to attack with your 8/8, but you're gaining 3 life and drawing a card every time. And then once they're done with their goats, they're going to be sacking real creatures, which, just to make this not attack. So, and if they have no creatures, then you just get to swing in with an 8/8 trample. So that's really good. Yeah, this card's just an A, maybe even an A+. So I would almost always first pick this, and it's really good. Yeah, you give them goats, but they're 0/1s, they can't hurt you. And this thing just eats them up, and they have to deal with it or they're just dead. So, yeah, I'll say A+ for Clackbridge Troll. There's not a lot I would pick over it. Next up, we got Epic Downfall, which is 1 and a black for a sorcery. At uncommon, it says exile target creature with converted mana cost 3 or less, or sorry, 3 or greater. 3 or greater. So this card is awesome, and I would often first pick this because everything you want to kill unlimited has converted mana cost 3 or greater. Oh, you can't kill their 2-drop or 1-drop. Well, you have other stuff to deal with that, like other little creatures. This one will kill anything like the Clackbridge Troll, or the Feasting Troll King, or Questing Beast, or whatever big green fatty you can think of. And this thing always gets you a mana advantage, because for 2 mana you're killing something with CMC 3 or greater. It's just awesome, and I'll give this an A because I will always first pick it over almost every other rare, which except maybe for Clackbridge Troll. Alright, next up we got Eye Collector, which is a black for a creature fairy at common. It's a 1/1 flying. When it deals damage to a player, each player puts the top card of their library into their graveyard. Not great, not playing it. I'm giving this an F because you're not going to want it. Next up, we got Festive Funeral, 4 and a black for an instant at common. Target creature gets minus X until end of turn, where X is the number of cards in your graveyard. This is a trap. I mean, how often are you going to have more cards in your graveyard than something's toughness? It's so unpredictable. 5 mana. I would want this to cost 3 mana even before considering this. So I would almost always cut this unless you literally have no other removal, which in black you probably have something. So this one gets a D minus, and if you had no other removal, that's the only time you would play it. So, okay, maybe D minus is too much. I'd give it a D. Next up, we got Foreboding Fruit. It's 2 and a black for a sorcery at common. Target player draws 2 cards and loses 2 life. It says Adamant. At least 3 black mana was spent to cast this spell. Create a food token. So this is just like Sign in Blood with upside. You almost always target yourself, obviously, to draw 2 cards, and you lose 2 life. But you can also finish off your opponent because it says target player. So if they're at 2 or 1, then you just win the game. That's awesome. It's probably rare when that comes up, but hey, there you go, Black Burn, and it gives you a food token, which is awesome, especially if you're in mono black and you got like Bognaudies or whatever. So Bognaudy, I love that title or name. So this one's pretty good. One at least in each black deck, maybe 2 sometimes if you want to go hard on the card advantage. But yeah, so this one I put in every deck, so I'd probably give it a B. And I wouldn't first pick it, but I definitely put it in every black deck once I'm in black. Next up, we got Forever Young, 1 and a black for a sorcery at common. Put any number of target creature cards from your graveyard on top of your library. Draw a card. So the flavor is kind of cool. It's like, the Fountain of Youth or something. But so for 2 mana, you get to draw a card, which is like the floor. And then you get to put a creature, any number of creatures on top of your library. I think you'd never want to play this early game. You probably want to play this like if the game is on like turn 12 and you're just trying to grind value and everything, and you've been trading all game long. Maybe you can put like 4 creatures on top of your library, which is hard to beat. So this card could be good, but the floor is pretty bad where you just draw a card and you don't want it in your opening hand. So I think if once all is said and done, you'd probably give this a C, and you'll cut it. In a lot of black decks, you probably won't even want to play this because it just doesn't affect the board at all. So, and you don't want to put too many of those cards in your deck. But it doesn't ask you too much. It's only 2 mana, so I'll give it a C. Next up, we got Foulmire Knight. It's a black for a creature zombie knight at uncommon. This one has an adventure. So the creature half is Death Touch 1/1, which is good. And then the instant adventure half is Profane Insight, 2 and a black for the instant adventure. You draw a card and you lose 1 life. This is my kind of adventure, card advantage on one half and a solid creature on the other. I'd probably hold this back. I wouldn't just play the 1 mana 1/1 Death Touch on turn 1. You probably want to try to get a card out of it. So I'd play this on turn 3, and then when they have a big fatty, I'll return it from the adventure and play it. And then you got a Death Touch 1/1, which are always good. So this one is really good. I want it in all my black decks, basically. I think the instant half is a little expensive for only drawing 1 card. But, I mean, that's just upside on your 1 mana 1/1 Death Touch, so I'll take it for sure. I'd play just a regular 1 mana 1/1 Death Touch with no upside. So this one is actually pretty freaking good. I'll give it a B minus because maybe if the pack is awful, I would take this first because it just goes in every black deck. So yeah, B minus. Next up, Giant Skewer. It's 1 and a black for a artifact equipment at common. It says equipped creature gets +2/+1. Whenever equipped creature deals combat damage to a creature, create a food token. Equip 3. So this might not be great because it doesn't have an automatic equip like I think the red one and no, there's no red one. The green one auto equips and the blue one equips if you draw a second card. So this one, you have to pay 3. So you have to pay 5 mana total to attach this to something. But it has the upside of getting you food tokens. And black decks really want food tokens because they have other uses for them. So as far as equipments go, like, you know, making your creature huge or whatever, +2/+1 is, I guess, alright. And that, like, if you can put this on a lifelinker, it's pretty good or something. And they're not going to want to even trade because you'll get a food token no matter what. So you'll probably cut this more often than not, but it is serviceable, and it is a steady stream of food tokens. So I'll give it a C. You'll probably only play it in the food deck. Next up, we got Lash of Thorns, which is a black for an instant at common. It says target creature gets +2/+1 and gains death touch until end of turn. So this one, you know, this is kind of like black 1 mana black removal, but you might have to trade off your creature. I'd rather play the adventure combat tricks than this one, because this one, all it is a combat trick, and a lot of combat tricks come on the adventures, especially at common, and all this does is +2/+1 in death touch. So that's not great, but it could push you over the edge and kill your, you can kill your opponent. I don't know, it's alright. I mean, it's very cuttable. It's like a D+. So you might want one of these, but probably no more. So D+ for Lash of Thorns. Next up, we got Locthwain Paladin, which is one of the cycle of paladins that are named after their castle. So this one is 3 and a black for a creature human knight at common. It's a 3/2. Has Menace and Adamant. If at least 3 black mana was spent to cast this spell, Locthwain Paladin enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it. So you really want to get that Adamant. 4/3 with Menace is pretty good stats. 3/2 for 4 is not great with Menace, but I mean, it's pretty cuttable, but you know, it's a knight for when you care about knights. And Menace is a pretty good ability on a 4/3 because it'll just trade with both creatures that are blocking it, or it just gets in for a lot of damage if they only have 1 blocker. So this is like a C. Yeah, I like C for Locthwain Paladin. Next up, we got Lost Legion. It's 1 and 2 black for a creature Spirit Knight at common. It's a 2/3. When it enters the battlefield, you scry 2. Yeah, this is solid value. I love scrying 2 with enter the battlefield. And for 3 mana, you get 2/3, which is not bad. Plus, it's a knight for your knight decks, your Mardu knight decks, or your 2-color knight decks. And scrying 2 is solid. You know, this trades. It's pretty cuttable, but it is, you know, decently solid value for the next turn or two. So, yeah, I'll give this one a C. I mean, you'll cut it, but if you need that knight filler, I mean, there you go. Next up, we got Malevolent Noble. It's 1 and a black for a creature human noble at common. It's a 2/2, and it says pay 2, sacrifice an artifact or another creature, put a 1/1 counter on Malevolent Noble. So this is like one of the only creature sack outlets in the set, besides like a Yara, which can only sack black creatures. There's not really much of an aristocrat's theme in this set, so not really much point in including this. I mean, it's a 2 mana 2/2 that you can stack foods to it, I guess, which is why they probably included artifact. And you can sacrifice useless creatures to make this bigger, but 2 mana is a lot for that. I want this to be free, ideally, or maybe just 1 mana. But you can do it at instant speed, so it screws up combat math for your opponent, which is, you know, really annoying. I've heard this being called a terrible card, but I'm a little higher on it than that. This is just like a solid C. I mean, it's like a 2/2 with upside. So take that for what you will. You'd probably include like 1 or 2 of these in your deck and not feel terrible about it. So C for Malevolent Noble. Next up, we got Memory Theft. It's 2 and a black for a sorcery at common. Target opponent reveals their hand. You choose a non-land card from it. That player discards that card. You may put a card that has an adventure that player owns from exile into that player's graveyard. So it's like This card's pretty unplayable. Yes, you get the value of getting rid of their adventure creature, but I mean, that's like such marginal upside. And then when you choose a non-land card, so this is just one of those examples of how limited is a lot different from constructed. Because in constructed, this effect is pretty good to get because the average power level of cards in their deck is high, but in limited you have terrible cards. Like you're playing like 2 mana 3/1s and like 2 mana 2/2s, and you're spending 3 mana to get rid of one of those, and maybe you'll get their bomb, but that's just really unlikely. So this card you're not going to want to play. I really hesitate to play this card, and I will lose to it, but I mean, at the same time, they put a bad card in their deck, so I'm giving this one like a D minus. So, like, there are fringe cases where if you have no other way of dealing with their bomb, you'd put it in, but sorry, I got like a cough. But other than that, I would never put this in my deck, so D minus. From the worst card in the set to maybe the best card in the set. Murderous Rider is 1 and 2 black for a creature zombie knight at rare. It's an adventure creature. The creature half says lifelink. It's a 2/3 for 3. Has lifelink. When Murderous Rider dies, put it on the bottom of its owner's library. And the spell half is Swift End, 1 and 2 black. Instant adventure. Destroy target creature or planeswalker. You lose 2 life. So this is a straight up bomb, A+. I'm just telling you right now. There is not a single card in this set that I would pick over this. It's removal and a solid creature, and the removal is well costed, and you only lose 2 life. But, I mean, the creature has lifelink, so you just get that back anyway, hopefully. So, yeah, this card is just a slam dunk A+ first pick. Like, you don't have to know anything besides that. Just put this in your deck. Just do it. You'll be glad you did. So A+, yay. Next up, we got Oathsworn Knight. It's 1 and 2 black for a creature human knight at rare. It's a 0/0, but Oathsworn Knight enters the battlefield with 4 +1/+1 counters on it. So it's kind of like a 3 mana 4/4. And it attacks each combat if able. Okay. And if damage would be dealt to Oathsworn Knight while it has a 1/1 counter on it, prevent that damage and remove a 1/1 counter from it. So this is kind of the shtick of the Black Knight from like Monty Python, where you just keep cutting off a limb and it still wants to keep fighting. And this thing this thing will get in there because it's 4 power and toughness for a 3 mana, which is a solid deal. And then they just have to keep chump blocking it until they can eventually kill it. What's funny about this is Death Touch doesn't work against it because the damage is prevented. Same with lifelink. So it has that like fringe upside with that. But it's just solid. Like, I don't know if it's a first pick. Well, I mean, I'd probably be happy first picking this. I'd rather have Murderous Rider, obviously, for my 3-drop in black. But this is solid, and it'll get there. Unfortunately, it has to attack each combat, which sucks. But, what more do you want for 3 mana? This is just a house, so I'm giving this a B. It's really good. Next up, we got Order of Midnight. Excuse me. It's 1 and a black for a creature human knight at uncommon. It's one of those adventures. The creature half is flying. Order of Midnight can't block, and it's a 2/2. But the spell half is Alter Fate. 1 and a black for a sorcery adventure. Return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. So this one, I would put as many of these as you can into your deck. It's just a solid creature. 2 mana 2/2 flyer, really good on the offense. Obviously can't block, so that's not great. Excuse me. And I wouldn't be afraid of just running this out as a 2/2. You don't always need to get the value of Alter Fate, getting a creature back. But it's a nice upside later. It's kind of like Gravedigger because you pay 2 mana for the return, and you pay 2 mana for the creature, so that's kind of like 4 mana, which Gravedigger costs 4 mana, does the same thing. But yeah, you want this in all your black decks. You want multiples. It's like a B minus. Not really a first pick. You could first pick it if the pack is horrible. And I wouldn't feel terrible about it, but I try to make like a value grindy black deck if I'd first pick this, so could be interesting. And yeah, so B minus for Order of Midnight. I really like that card. Plus the art for the showcase is really cool by Seb McKinnon. It's awesome. Next up, we got Piper of the Swarm. It's 1 and a black for a creature human warlock at rare. It's a 1/3. It says rats you control have menace. 1 and a black tap. Create a 1/1 black rat creature token. 2 and 2 black tap. Sack 3 rats. Gain control of target creature. So this is just kind of like the way I look at it is kind of a pretty efficiently costed just chump block machine, because it by itself it can block, but then it just creates more and more chump blockers every turn, and if they don't have trample or whatever, you're just blocking everything. And then if they for some reason aren't playing creatures, you can just create 3 rats and then steal whatever creature they do have. I mean, if you have 3 rats and you got 4 mana, they just can't play creatures because you'll just steal it. But this takes an awful lot of work to get that far. So, I mean, I might first pick this. So, I mean, it does have a lot of upside, but I think the stealing a creature is just kind of flavor text. You'll never have enough rats, unless it's like a super late game grindy type of game, which I guess I could see that coming. But I don't know how aggressive this format is, so for right now, I'd probably give this a B. But if the format turns out to be really slow and grindy, this definitely increases in value. So B for Piper. Next up, we got Rankle, Master of Pranks. 2 and 2 black. For a legendary creature, Fairy Rogue and Mythic Rare. It's a 3/3, has flying and haste. When Rankle, Master of Pranks, deals combat damage to a player, choose any number. Each player discards a card, each player loses 1 life and draws a card, and each player sacrifices a creature. So it's kind of awkward wording, but basically you can choose any option once. You can't just choose to discard their whole hand or whatever. So each of these effects is symmetrical, but you can build your deck in such a way that it won't hurt as bad. And you obviously won't be sacking a creature if this is your only creature, unless whatever they have is scary and needs to be dealt with. But this gives you the option of choosing, so I mean, this is pretty good. I mean, I don't know what I would usually do. It's very context dependent, but it's a flying haste 3/3 for 4, which is really good. And I'd play a 4 mana 3/3 flyer by itself. So this just has like tons of upside. It's a first pick, but not something I'm like super thrilled about because everything it does is symmetrical. So hurts you too. And you don't have to choose any of the options. You can just beat him over the head with a 3/3 flyer, which is always good. So I think this one gets a B, and I would first pick it, but I would probably pick like good removal over it. Next up, we got Reaper of Night. It's 5 and 2 black for a creature spectre at common. It's an adventure creature. The creature half says it's a 4/5, and whenever Reaper of Night attacks, if the defending player has 2 or fewer cards in hand, it gains flying until end of turn. And the sorcery half of this is Harvest Sphere, 3 and a black for a sorcery adventure. Target opponent discards 2 cards. So this one is an example of like 2 mediocre cards stapled together, and what you get is kind of just a mediocre card all over. Paying 4 for Mind Rot really stinks, and 7 mana for a 4/5 that sometimes flies. Ugh, no, I'm gonna pass on this one. It's just too expensive for everything it does. So this one gets an F. I'm never putting this in my deck, I'll be honest. Next up, we got Reeve Soul, which is 1 and a black for a sorcery at common. Destroy target creature with power 3 or less. So you get to kill their small stuff, which, that's useful. It's kind of annoying that the other 2 mana black conditional removal spell cares about converted mana cost 3 or greater. So you just have to memorize that this one cares about power and the other one cares about converted mana cost. That's just kind of an annoying thing, but I don't know, you might play Reeve Soul to kill their little stuff. I wouldn't play more than like one of these in your deck. It's not a first pick because the other one kills big stuff, which you always want to kill, and this one you can just trade off your creatures with, so yeah, not a huge fan of Reeve Soul. I might put 1 in my deck, so it's like a C. Next up, we got Revenge of Ravens. It's 3 and a black for an enchantment at uncommon. Whenever a creature attacks you or a planeswalker you control, that creature's controller loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. Let's see. So, whenever a creature attacks you or a planeswalker you control, they lose a life and you gain a life. So this makes all their 1 power stuff irrelevant and even bad to attack with, which is cool. And this makes you really hard to kill because you're always getting life when they attack. And the primary way of killing somebody in limited is with attacking. So, I mean, it punishes them for attacking you, which is pretty good. But for 4 mana, like, I want more than that for my do nothing enchantment, really. So, I'm starting this at like a C minus. You might put it in your defensive black decks, but I'm not. Like, the dream is to have multiple of these, but oh gosh, putting multiple of these in your deck just sounds terrible. So this one, I think it's a C minus. So just be careful of putting stuff in your deck that doesn't really affect the board, because it's not going to save you if they have way more creatures than you, and they played a 4-drop bomb and you played a 4-drop do nothing enchantment. So just be careful. All right, C minus for Revenge of Ravens. Next up, we got Smitten Swordmaster. It's 1 and a black for a creature human knight at common. It's an adventure creature. It's a 2/1 with lifelink on the creature half. So that's basically exactly Child of Night, which is a vampire instead, but yeah. And this one's a human knight. Next up, the sorcery half of this is Curry Favor for a black. You gain X life, and each opponent loses X life, where X is the number of knights you control. Oh my gosh, my favorite thing to ever do in this format will be to play 3 Curry Favors in a row to win a game, each doing like 3 damage each. Because it's not hard to get a lot of knights out in black, and especially in Mardu colors, like black, white, and red is Mardu. And so this will gain you a bunch of life. And then later it's a 2/1 with lifelink, which is solid. So a lot of times you'll just run this out as a 2/1, but later in the game, if you top deck it, I mean, it'll just finish them off. So I'm really high on Smitten Swordmaster. I'd probably give it a C+. You'll play a bunch of these in your knight decks and feel pretty good about it. So yeah, C+ with this one. Next up, we got Spectre Shriek, which is 1 black mana for a sorcery at uncommon. Target opponent reveals their hand. You may choose a non-land card from it. If you do, that player exiles that card. If a non-black card is exiled this way, exile a card from your hand. So this is one of those cards that's like a self-hating black card, which I think there's like a cycle of these. I don't know if is there a white one? I'm not even sure. I don't think there was a white one, but this one cares about its own color. This is strictly in the sideboard. Would probably never main deck this, and you get any card, which is pretty good, and it's kind of like a new Thoughtseize in a way, but with card disadvantage instead of losing 2 life, which losing 2 life is less of a downside than losing a card for not picking a black card. So this says you may choose an online card, so you could just pay a black to look at their hand, which is not worth a card. I wouldn't put this in your deck, and it's kind of like that Vicious Rumors from Return to Ravnica, or Guilds of Ravnica, which like new players love that card because like, oh, look at all the stuff I do, but everything it does is like does nothing. It's like so minimal. This one, same thing, looks flashy, but I would avoid it. So I'm giving this one an F. I will never put one of these in my deck. Next up, we got Sir Conrad the Grim. It's 3 and 2 black for a legendary creature, human knight at uncommon. 5/4, has a brick of text, which says, whenever another creature dies or a creature card is put into a graveyard from anywhere other than the battlefield, or a creature card leaves your graveyard, Sir Conrad the Grim deals 1 damage to each opponent. Okay, that whole paragraph is just 1 damage to each opponent. And then 1 in a black, each player puts the top card of the library into their graveyard. So this wants you to put a lot of creatures in your deck, which in limited you'll often do almost every time. So that's good. And then it wants your opponent to have creatures, which they will. So and it's a 5/4 for 5, which is solid. So yeah, this is just a good card all around, and it even fuels itself. So you want to trade with creatures, you want to discard creatures, you want to mill creatures. This is kind of like a deck where you want to put like 17 creatures in your deck if you put them in. But it's probably just good in every black deck anyway. So it's just a solid card. You might even first pick it because it just does a lot. So I'd probably give it a B+, and I'd be pretty happy with putting this in my deck for sure. Next up, we got Tempting Witch, which is 2 and a black for a creature human warlock at common. It's a 1/3. When it enters the battlefield, create a food token. And pay 2 and tap sack of food to have target player lose 3 life. So this is just like a better option for your food. I'd much rather have a player lose 3 life than just gain 3 life. Killing your opponent is better than increasing your own life total because you can win at 1 life. Anyway, this is just a really good food payoff, and I would love to have this in my food decks specifically. And if you're not in the food deck, you're only going to get 1 activation of this, which, you know, that's 3 life, so, but it doesn't affect the board, so I don't know. This one's kind of like a C, I think, because you'll play like 1 or 2 of these, but 3 mana for a 1/3 is not where you want to be. You really want to have the food. Alright, so yeah, I'd say C for Tempting Witch. The upside is there, but then again, there's a big floor, so yeah. Next up, we got Wicked Guardian, 3 and a black for a creature human noble at common. It's a 4/2. When Wicked Guardian enters the battlefield, you may have it deal 2 damage to another creature you control. If you do, draw a card. So hopefully you're not killing your own creature to draw a card, but sometimes when you just need a card, you might have to. You might have to kill your own creature. Or hopefully you're hitting something with 3 toughness. But I really like drawing a card on this. It's really cool. Yeah, but you want more out of your creature than 2 toughness. Like it's a 4 mana 4/2. You don't want too many of those in your deck because they just die to their 1-drops and 2-drops. So yeah, not great. Does say draw a card, so that is upside. I'd probably put 1 of these in a black deck, but not more than that for sure. So I'd probably say this is like a C-. Like I'd be kind of unhappy having this in my deck, but it's when you do get to draw a card, that's always nice. Next up, we got Wishclaw Talisman. It is 1 in the black for an artifact at rare. It says when it enters the battlefield with it, you get 3 wish counters on it. 1 in tap. Remove a wish counter from Wishclaw Talisman. Search your library for a card, put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. An opponent gains control of Wishclaw Talisman. Activate this ability only during your turn. So this is pretty hard to evaluate, but I probably would avoid this at all costs. Because if you're in black, there's not many ways to destroy your opponent's artifact. And what you would want to do with this is activate it and then immediately destroy their this before they get to activate it on their turn. But I mean, when worst comes to worst, you tutor for a card, then they tutor for a card, and then you tutor for another card since it has 3 wish counters. So hopefully your 2 bombs are better than their 1 bomb. And I mean, this could fix your mana too, because you can get like a land from it. That seems like an awful waste of this card though. The art is super creepy and cool. Yeah, but this one, like, I would probably avoid this really in limited. Like, you don't want to give your opponent like their best card. Um, yeah, so I'm giving this a D. And if you want to try it, go for it. And I would love if my opponent gave me this after searching because yeah, I get to search for my best thing. Or I just wouldn't activate it. I don't know. Or I just like get removal with it. Or like a sweeper and then kill their 2 whatever they get. So this one, yeah, it's like a D, and it's very powerful, but it's very dangerous at the same time. So hopefully your bomb is bigger than theirs if you're playing this card. So just be careful with it. And finally, our last black card is Witch's Vengeance. 1 and 2 black for a sorcery at rare. Creatures of the chosen type of your choice get -3/-3 until end of turn. Great at killing knights, great at killing elves, and great at killing nobles and all that stuff. So pick your poison. And you can usually use this to kill only their stuff, but you might lose a knight or something if you name knights. It's pretty good removal, and I would first pick this for sure. So I'll give this a B, since I would definitely take Murderous Rider over it, even though they're both rare, so you can't really do that, but well, they could be like a foil. So I'll give B to Witch's Vengeance. It's solid. And that's the end of all the black cards in Throne of Eldraine. Thanks for watching, you guys. Thanks for some of the feedback you've given me. I'm trying to go a little faster because I realize these are getting kind of long. So I tried to go a little faster, although it's like 47 minutes at this point. But, you know, I'm trying my best. So thanks a lot, and I really appreciate everybody watching this. Feel free to like, subscribe, leave a comment. That would be awesome. Again, my name's Eric, and I am out, and I'll see you next time for the red cards. Take it easy.